You get one chance to form your own squad, and you choose your ex, your current lover, the Quadrant's resident smartass, two people who have tried to kill you in the past year, one oversaid current lover, and whatever Dain is. These are your choices for the most important mission any writer could possibly undertake.
Welcome to the Busy Girls Book Club. We are bringing you a special episode this week on Book Talk's most popular book series. I mean, it's the series that Book Talk launched, let's be real. And it's our second iteration of said episode. Yeah, so let's get into it. I'm Catherine.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Caitlin. And we are bringing back our Unhinged fan theory questions left discussion episode for Onyx Storm. You guys ate up our Iron Flame Unhinged episode. We could see it like rise before Onyx Storm came out, that everyone was re-listening to, not our Iron Flame episode, but the Iron Flame Unhinged episode. So you know what to expect. If you haven't already listened to our original Onyx Storm episode, I would recommend you go back and do that. And then we can discuss all the juicy fan theories.
Yeah, so this entire episode is spoilers. We are especially getting into stuff that happens and left the ending of Onyx Storm super open-ended, and talking about where the series is going. So if you haven't read the book yet, you know, this episode, we're going to completely talk about everything that happens. So spoiler alert.
Yeah, and kind of let's start again with kind of the absolute shit show that was Empyrean Publishing and Red Tower Books putting out this book. It was not as bad as Iron Flame. People were not getting their hands dyed black from the edges of the book, and there weren't chunks of the book missing, and there weren't like egregious printing errors. It was just a lack of prep and planning. Like in Target, they would have only like 5 copies of the Target exclusive edition, and Amazon, the same shit happened with the Iron Flame, where people pre-ordered their copy the day that they could pre-order it, and they still didn't get it until a week after or 2 weeks after the official launch date, because Amazon never gave them a delivery date. So I think Red Tower Books still has to answer for some of these bad publishing practices that have gone on the past 2 launches.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like Threshing Day to try and get one of the deluxe editions. Like, that's ridiculous. Also, the print edition, despite not having all the errors of last time, is still like not the best quality. My pages are really thin and don't sit flat anymore. And I could like smell the book the whole time I was reading it.
Ew.
Which is unfortunate. So will they get it together for the next 2 books? Time will tell, I guess.
Yeah, it does feel worse that it's been like now 2 botched launches in a row for a book
Right.
series that everyone knows is incredibly popular. Like, this is not a surprise. But okay. So speaking of the next book, 4 and 5, Rebecca Yarros has said that she has not started writing the next book. So she said she will do what she's always done and write a contemporary fiction book in between. So I guess she needs a little palate cleanser. So it's possibly going to be a long wait until we get to book 4.
Also, she said this, and now there's rumors that she's releasing another fantasy book. It's like God of the Underworld or something.
Interesting.
So don't lie to us, Rebecca.
Right.
Oh, well, she's still going to take all our money.
Yes.
Well, let's get to what questions do we still have after reading?
I have so many questions about the gods and the priests and how much power they wield. I feel like they were sort of like a surprise addition, which I liked, but they like really hadn't been a big part of books 1 and 2. And so now I'm kind of like, okay, what is up with these religions and these gods? And they seem dangerous. And the priests seem to wield actual power, which is interesting. So, like, what the fuck is up with that? Then, obviously, what the fuck is up with Violet's dad, who, like, we still don't totally know what his motivations are and, like, where he was really going with all his research and what his goals were with Violet and semi-dedicating Violet and then undedicating Violet. And then also, obviously, the end of the book, like, what's going to happen to Xaden? What's going to happen to Violet? Like, why does she not have memory? Why is she now married and is like the queen of Tyrandor? And what's going to happen to Scale and Tairn? And where is Andarna? Like, obviously, these are all questions.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, why was Tairn tired by the end of the book? Because a lot had gone on in that 12 hours. Who's this new brother that has suddenly popped up and that Xaden said, join the Venom side?
Okay, so that's where I wrote down basically points from all of these you guys have mentioned, but that's where I want to start. Is I want to hear our thoughts on a few of these. More than a few of these. This is what you came for, guys, if you're listening, okay? The big question. Who's the new Brennan? Who's Xaden's new brother in the Brennan? Rebecca Yarros did say pay attention to who is not there at the end. So here's some names that have been tossed around. Garrick, Brennan, Bodhi, Eric, Sawyer. Who do you think? Make your case.
Okay, it can't be Brennan because we see Brennan at the end of the book. I understand. Yeah. I have seen all the theories on TikTok. I understand people saying Brennan's shady. Brennan's got some shady shit going on. And that is true. I do think he has some odd connection to the Venom just because of his experience with Naolin and how he died and was brought back. So I do, and he has that scar. He's shady. But I think because Rebecca has specifically said to look out for who is missing, the only other person who is mentioned as missing is Garrick, besides Xaden. And I think it's quite on the nose, honestly. I saw the arguments for Bodhi, and I started off thinking it was Bodhi because he really didn't want to be the Duke. He didn't really want to be royalty. He just wanted to help Xaden. And so it makes sense for him to be Xaden's second hand in the Venom side as well. But I also don't think Bodhi had need to reach into the ground and get more power. Garrick at the end of the book kept saying, I don't have much more left in me. I can only hope that this is enough. And he kept using his second signet to travel distances. I think he reached a breaking point and decided to take from the ground to get more power.
So I agree with you on Garrick. I think I mentioned in the last episode, I said there is a reason I think Imogene's POV was brought in at the end. And I think this is it. Because Garrick removes Imogen and Quinn from the tower. And she's talking about, like, as it's happening, the tower's losing color. And we kind of think it's because the Venom are outside. I think it's because Garrick's drawing the energy so he can carry them to the next place. I think that was, like, literally her writing Garrick pulling power to continue doing what people were asking him to do. Like, he had the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, when I read this the first time, I immediately thought it was Dain. Because there is some weird insinuations with Dain, I feel, as the book goes on. And him not being around and his relationship with his dad. And he's sort of around for all the important plot points, but not necessarily an important actor. And he has that, like, weird scar at the end of the book. Like, he's there when they are channeling into Brennan. And Violet notices this, like, scar that he has.
That's from when Jack sucked him.
Yeah.
The way it's in the book, I wish I could remember more details because I've kind of, like, forgotten already the exact way it's, like, described. But I just remember, like, it was sort of said in, like, a suspicious way where it was like deliberately pointed out.
So, yeah. here, I'm not arguing with you. I think Dain
Yeah.
would be interesting, and he was with Imogen. So
Yes.
if it's draining, like he was there. That's a fair
Yes.
point.
And he also then, that's the only time he's in the entire
I
back part
do
of the
think
book.
though that whole Sloane thing, channeling was pointed out to make Brennan sus.
But I think, right, then that's like misdirection to like Dain.
I will say at the end when Xaden's confronting this new brother, he says he has seen me go for 5 months struggling with this. And we don't know that Dain ever knew that Xaden was Venom. So
unless
that's
he
why
touched someone.
Unless, yeah. But I can see the argument, but even Sloane said that you have too much power. Like she was like, how do you have this much power? So I think he either has a second signet or his first signet is way more powerful than we actually think it is. So I think he's going to be important on the non-Venom side with Sloane.
That's interesting. I think it could be interpreted that way, but I interpret it as like he's drawn. Like that was literally the first thing I thought before I even reached the Xaden part. I don't know
I like
why.
this, and this one's not on TikTok. So
No.
Oh, interesting. You guys have a
No.
Casey original. I have felt like Dain was actually sus the whole second half of the book. I felt like he was absent and present at the same time, which made me really suspicious of him because it was obvious that there was leaks in Bastia, and he was important enough to be around. Also, he hates his dad, which I think is kind of a weird motivator for turning. And anyway, I feel like he was sort of like betrayed by Bastia and like went through some really tough things with like Violet and everything. So to me, it kind of made sense that his sort of like bond with the school and with like the war was broken. And then I was like, okay. So again, I thought this even before we get to the scene with Xaden where we know someone else has turned. I was already thinking that he had possibly turned. And then when she said, you have so much power, that's crazy, I was like, okay, he must be channeling. Like there's no other way. He must be channeling.
Or he has a second signet.
Yeah, I mean, he could have a second signet, but it's like
Dain has more depth than we realize, no matter which way it goes. I think Dain's a sleeper.
That whole battle, he's just like gone, except for that one moment. And so that's my prediction.
So, okay. I like these theories. Now I want to talk about, is Theophanie really dead? And if she is the Venon's answer to General Sorrengail, is there still a Venom answer to Violet? Or is that why they're recruiting Violet so hard, is because Violet is unique?
Oh, Violet's unique. I think, well, because I truly believe lightning is not what her power is. She wields pure power. She just doesn't know how to
literally
not.
said you are pure power, and she somehow still thinks it's lightning. But
yeah, so she only thinks it's lightning, only does lightning, but like everyone has kind of confirmed to her, no, you are just manifesting it as lightning, but you actually wield pure power. So I don't think that there is an answer
you mean
to
like
that.
An Irid?
Oh, yeah.
I like that connection.
I hope she's dead, but also she was the most interesting foil, so
yeah.
And
so
the storm powers make lightning look so lame.
Yeah, the tornado.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, Violet was actually nothing compared to her mom. Why do they keep saying she's so powerful?
I know, dude. This is actually part of my like frustration with it. Is Violet's like the least powerful one. Like Xaden's way more powerful than her. Her mom was way more powerful than her. Eric is way more powerful than her. Like, and it's not that you have to be the most powerful. It's just that like I feel like she's treated like she's the key to everything, and I don't really feel like she's manifested that yet.
Yeah, I understand Xaden saying she's the only one that could take him out in the end, and I think that's just because like he could prevent a lot of things with his shadows, but he can't prevent a lightning bolt. So
right. Also, we never get into the fact in the book that Xaden's like intention reading, air quotes, is like very obviously like broached into like mind reading and like hearing thoughts, and it's indicated, and then we never
he's
get
moving
into
extra fast, and the shadows flee in different directions from him. Like things are changing inside that boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's part of why I'm so interested in like him potentially having kept a lot more secrets from Violet in this book than we know, which I personally felt like that final scene reflects the fact that I think that he was keeping a lot more from her, is because I think there's like all these like signs that he's lying and that his powers are changing, maybe because he's Venom now, but we don't really know. And he doesn't really ever talk about it. We never really learn about it.
It's true. Speaking of signets developing, we know that Violet now has dream walking. We know Eric can tell the future. We are realizing, though, that all of the dragons are choosing relic marked riders that their previous riders are related to, so that they develop second signets. They're building their own little army. Yeah. Imogen, we see, maybe has some like earth wielding happening.
Yeah.
What else? Like Sloane's gonna end up with a second signet. That means, you know, like,
yeah.
Where do we see this going? What second signets are appearing?
Well, I think it's so interesting about the why the dragons are deciding to do this, because we know nothing about the Empyrean. Like, we know nothing about the dragons and their systems and stuff like that. But it is alluded to that Tairn and Sigale do not agree with what the Empyrean is doing. And Rebecca Yarros has now said that the dragons may or may not be giving fake names to the scribe that's like writing down, like when you go up after the threshing and it's just like, so that
they don't realize they were related.
Yes. So it's enough to not make questions come up, but it's also very intentional that they're giving fake names so that they don't realize that it's the same dragon within the lineage, because they're creating their own separate little army.
Interesting. So there's two things here that I want to mention that I don't understand. The first one is actually a little bit more about the previous question, because I like the idea of balance, but I don't totally understand how it's working in the book. Because it seems like the Venom get someone powerful, and then the scales swing back to try to give someone equally as powerful who's like not turned. But then it's also sort of unclear if it works both ways, because I'm like, well, if it's about balance, then do they need the dark wielders? Is like, what happens to the balance if there's no dark wielders? Like, because the concept of balance like necessitates the existence of an other.
Well, I kind of forgot about the kid manifesting shadows at one point.
Yes.
That was a big deal.
As soon as Xaden turns, someone else manifests shadows. And so I'm like, does it then work the other way? Like with your question of like, okay, so Violet can lightning wield or power wield or whatever her actual power is.
Right. Is there an answer for her on the other side? So
does that mean that there will be a Venom who's equally powerful? Like, it seems really unclear, and I don't totally understand that. But then with the signets, I do not understand why the marked ones get 2 signets. Like, I don't understand what was done to them and why that creates dual signets.
So it's not the marked ones that are getting it. It's because they are bonding with a dragon that had previously bonded with their direct ancestor. So their grandfather, their father.
The dragons just happen to be choosing, though, marked riders for this.
Interesting. So it seems like then, okay, I understand. That makes more sense. I just like couldn't remember that.
We don't know why the dragons are choosing the marked riders.
Right. Because now then it's like there's something the dragons aren't saying if they're deliberately choosing people.
Like, because people thought Sigale was his great uncle or great aunt's dragon. It turns out to be his grandfather's dragon. And that's why he has 2 signets.
Okay.
And it turns out that's happening more often than not with marked ones. And they don't realize it.
Have that. But
okay, so there's some connection between the dragons wanting to amplify power and they're using the rebelling force to do it. Because to me, so I like the plethora of signets. I think it's interesting for the book's purpose. However, it makes Violet a lot less special.
Yes.
Because
I'll give you another theory here in a little bit. It could make it even more complicated. So let's come back to that in the TikTok section.
Yeah.
A question that's all over TikTok and that we've all kind of wondered, I think, is Naolin Berwyn?
I think so. Or no, actually, no, I don't think so anymore. I thought originally, because we never hear Naolin's surname, so we never know what he actually is.
Naolin never, like I said, if you don't see the body burn, they ain't dead.
Yeah, I don't think he's dead. But then the sage or Berwyn says, I've been waiting centuries, which makes me think that that's not Naolin anymore.
Yeah. I thought it forever until I honed in on that part. It would be so interesting if he was, but it sounds like these people higher in power are old.
Yeah.
The older you are, the more powerful you are. So I don't think that anymore, but I wish, because that would have been genius.
But I think Naolin
still think
is
he's a
Brennan,
Brennan though, somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Brennan's working with him.
And then does that mean, did Tairn unbond him? Does Tairn know? Because Tairn never
wants to talk about it.
He never says the one who died. He says the one who came before.
Yes. Which I have also caught, and I have actively wondered many times if they turned. But that
and
also...
and Darna just like broke her bond. They said it was because she's an Irid, but could Tairn have just like unbonded Naolin or something?
Yes. So this is my question, is like, we now know of like more than one dragon who has been bonded to someone who turned. But now we know from Xaden that turning does not immediately eradicate the bond, which means if Tairn's other rider turned, they could technically still have a bond. And so it's like, whoa.
But can they bond two riders? You know,
we don't know.
The rules are unclear. Yeah. The dragons are keeping secrets because it's like, just because your rider turns does not mean that your connection is gone, which means there are dragons who like know a lot more about Venom than they are like saying.
And it makes sense then why the Venom would want riders so bad, because they can not only channel from the ground, but also from their dragons.
Right. And if they maintain that connection for whatever reason, right? Scale does not abandon Xaden immediately, etc., who even knows, because the dragons are keeping secrets.
Mm-hmm.
Having an actual dragon on your side.
Well, Jack had his dragon until he killed it.
Yeah.
Right.
But like, killing the dragon didn't kill Jack. So it severs something.
Yes, it changes something. But we don't know what it is.
Okay, speaking of Jack, is he dead?
No,
there's no way.
Jack Barlow can never fucking die. That's what I've learned from these books.
Theophanie like stabbed him with one of those daggers, but
so
that man, get rid of him. Pancheck. Let's talk about him. At the end, you find out he's been feeding info to the Venom. Is he Venom?
No, I think he's just opportunistic.
Just a shitty person?
Yeah.
I assumed he was Venom, but honestly, I don't really think it matters. Like, working with Venom and being Venom is just the same.
So Pancheck also references Berwyn having access to Berwyn's son. So, and Berwyn says, it's okay, I have another one. Who are Berwyn's sons? He's probably not talking about his little Venom sons, Xaden.
I thought he meant Jack and Xaden. Yeah.
I don't think that would be son though, because I don't know. That's why I'm like, who's the son?
I mean, Xaden references new brother.
I know. But why is Pancheck making sure the Venom
Jack a brother?
His kid? I know, I hate that. Anyway, I have lots of questions about Pancheck. But also, I think Xaden maybe killed him in the end, so...
Well, no, Berwyn killed his dragon, so he would have died if he's not Venom.
Oh, true. If he's not Venom.
If he's not Venom. I didn't think he was, so I think he's just dead.
I hope he's dead. He sucks. Who also sucks? The Irids.
They're douchebags.
They come back. The one guy lights the word stone or whatever. And now what do we do with them? Where do they come back into play?
I mean, it's interesting because Aunt Darda's back now. And the main thing was that she left with them to learn more about her history.
You were gone like 3 days?
Yeah, it wasn't very long.
Yeah.
I think they have their reasoning. They're dicks to Violet, yes, and they're dicks to Andarna, but they have grown apart from the continent and they know things that other species do not know. And I think that they're a pacifist group who was hoping that humans would learn their goddamn lesson, and they didn't. And so they're a lot more unforgiving because they don't actually interact with humans on a daily basis.
Yeah. And they don't bond with humans, so they don't understand the complexity of it in that relationship. I agree. I thought that they were assholes, but I did also actually have sympathy for their perspective. Because to them, this is like, here we go again, right? I still think they're going to be important, and I think they'll come back again in the next book because they obviously still have knowledge of like what happened the first time that Venin were like having an insurgence. So I think there's like no way around them being important. The fact that Violet kept her second signet when Andarna severed the bond, very sus to me.
So that's the next question I have.
Yeah.
Her dream walking, and we kind of talked about in the last episode that like Rebecca said there's only one person alive who can train her. We assume that's Berwyn.
Yeah.
Could though, we bring in the gods. We keep bringing them in. She's touched by Dune, clearly partially dedicated.
Mm-hmm.
But she also has another.
What if one of her signets is actually just a gift from Dune?
I have often wondered that Violet would have more signets because of the whole thing with the god. Also, if marked ones are having more signets because they're like obscuring the family ties, the same thing could have happened with Violet. Taryn has been very withholding about this. When Violet asks him about why she still has her power when Andarna's gone, he like totally evades answering. So I actually feel skeptical that was Andarna's gift.
Mm-hmm.
I'm skeptical of that too.
I think there's a lot more at play here, and I think what she did get or may have in the future from Andarna is not dreamwalking.
I agree.
Yeah, I also, because they say touched by Doom, but another curries her favor.
Malik. It's gotta be
Malik. It's gotta be Malik. And that's why Liam showed up during her interrogation.
Yeah.
Her path is not yet set. Which god is she going to follow? Yeah.
And I feel like, so what they say about the signets is it's developed based on need and bond with the dragon. And I think that's a little bit of a lie. I think there's a lot more going on with the signets and the dragons and the gods. And I wonder if the dragons have more power over the signets than they're saying.
Well, and then the Irids tell Andarna, like, you gave her something much worse than...
Right. And Andarna says, well, I didn't have control over it, but it seems like they're lying. Like, I think the dragons are lying.
So originally she stopped time for Violet. So, like, is that ever going to come back into play?
Like, and then they say that only like dragons who are adolescents have more power because their magic isn't set yet. And I was like, well, that makes it seem like grown dragons can probably do more than they're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of gifts and signets, but also the gifts from the island. Surely they come back into play. The box.
The black compass, it's pitch black. I was like, well, that seems
going to take you to Xaden.
Yeah.
Also, there's another book we're about to do for the podcast
that literally has this thing in it.
It has the compass and it points to the thing they need most in the world.
Yeah.
I literally, when I was reading it, I was like,
I'm like, so the compass will tell you where the cure is? Cool.
Yeah, straight stealing.
So my original hypothesis about the compass was that it has to do with the Irids, because the Irids often manifest the shimmery black scales.
No, only Andarna, because she chooses to look like Taryn.
Yeah.
But her black isn't the same as his black. Yeah. It can be, but she has this like iridescent black.
Yeah.
And so I still think it has something to do with the irids and the venom and how that all works.
It's going to lead her somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know what the clear box does.
No.
I really want to know what the clear box does.
It's gonna so
I thought some people said that it may hold the piece of Xaden's soul.
I don't know if I'm all that, but
yeah, I don't believe that either.
Yeah, I am curious.
Gives
about
me
that.
Room of Requirement vibes.
Yes,
from Harry Potter. I bet if you put things in it, shit will happen.
Didn't he put the sword of Tirandor or a dagger in there or something? The dagger.
He put the sword in there.
Something's gonna happen with that. Also, broccoli must be a magic cat. Like something's gonna happen with broccoli.
So that's the next question. Where's broccoli?
No idea. I need broccoli. I'm guessing in Peromial because he was with
That's
Drake.
where Drake went. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Drake and Mira.
Hey.
That's got to be something, right?
Mm-hmm,
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
So the last one I want to talk about before I want to read some of our Instagram followers' comments that they gave us is Rebecca. There's a video where she's talking to audiences and she says, when you write romantasy, you're sort of contractually obligated to give the main character a happy ending. And she goes, which is Violet? She says nothing about Xaden, and the person points that out, and she just kind of like sits there. Does Xaden get a happy ending?
Okay, so this is, you guys know I love a falling out of love story. Like,
yes. Do the hard thing.
Do the hard thing. And so what I loved about the ending of this book is I felt like Rebecca Yarros did the hard thing. Like Xaden.
Except they're married.
Yeah, I was like, eye roll. I'm sorry. The way marriage works in fantasy novels never ceases to make me cringe. However, I like, like we talked about this in the last episode, that scene where the black wave comes and Violet knows that Xaden has given up his soul. If Rebecca Yarros saves this man, I will never forgive her. It will kill the book series for me if Xaden somehow becomes good again or they cure him or whatever. The only way forward to me, to make me happy, me who hates the easy way, who loves the hard thing, is to have Violet kill him.
I agree with you. That's what I want to see. Also, I've heard lots of people say it's really a story of her falling back in love with Dain, or maybe Eric will be the one.
It's not Dain. It's not Dain.
However, a friend of mine did point out that the only ending that Violet would see as happy is her being with Xaden.
Right now. But that's character development.
Well, we didn't get any of that in this book.
No, we got none of it, but hopefully in the future, right?
Okay.
Violet.
Did everyone else pick up on that Dain and Sloane have like great sexual chemistry and tension?
Yes, and they're always hanging out together and like
that one's for sure happening.
Yeah.
So it cannot be Dain and Violet if Sloane's in the picture.
Yes. I would ship Eric. Violet.
Eric, I would love.
Yes.
Take out Halden. She is now the wife of the king of Navarre, and she's like the Duchess of Tirandor. That would be pretty sick.
Yeah. So Dain, my original hypothesis in Iron Flame Unhinged was I thought she would come back to Dain in the end. And I think the supporting thing for that in this book is that Violet's dad anticipated that Violet would end up with Dain. However, the thing with Sloane makes me think that won't happen, because that's just like obviously like being turned that way. Also now my hypothesis is that Dain is Venom. So obviously if he's Venom, I don't think he ends up with Violet. But I think it's not Xaden. I think it will be someone else. I think Eric would be my leading guess, but I kind of hope it's someone we haven't met yet.
Interesting. Okay, so we did ask our Instagram followers what thoughts and theories they have, and we did get a few answers. So one of them says Naolin is Brennan, like we just said. Another said, what is up with the priestesses of Dain and Violet?
Yeah.
Also,
because they know a lot about her, which is weird.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about that yet, but they know Violet. They know about Violet.
They do. And they know about how she hasn't yet determined which path she walks.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, shout out to our friend Caitlin, who's been on several episodes with us. She wrote, Rebecca has no idea what to do with the series, which is why this book didn't answer anything.
Yes. That is my whole thing. She doesn't know what she's doing, and that's why the book reads like it could be any of the above. Like, I don't think Rebecca Yarros knows the answer to these questions we're asking.
Well, I think she said it was originally going to be a trilogy, and book 2 and book 3 were going to be one book.
I've heard too that it's always been 5, but Iron Flame was originally 2 books smushed together. So I don't know. I don't know where we're going. Nobody knows, which is a perfect segue into I have deep dived into TikTok to bring us some plausible theories, some batshit crazy theories. And I told these two not to look ahead at them because some of them are just so like unhinged. I wanted their reactions for you guys. So let's start, and I'll like cite all these TikTokers, Instagrammers in the episode notes. So if you want to go watch them, you can do that. One of them that is pretty popular is that Brennan has been marked by the venom. So the scene you're talking about, Casey, where Sloane channels between Dain and Brennan, people have talked about how when power moved out of Dain, he got the handprint from Jack. When there was the moving between the two, there was no like handprint, but also Brennan has this mark on his hand. Anyway, I don't think all of this holds up because if Sloane is not a venom, it wouldn't leach like the color out. She's just using her signet. So I don't know if that totally holds up, but she does talk about it weirdly, like you mentioned, Casey. Like she weirdly brings it up. This theory is that the mark on Brennan's hand is a rune, and he was marked when Naolin, assuming Naolin turned venom, saved him, and that like how the Wyvern are run by runes, and it talks about like Xaden severing their runes from their hearts so that they die in the end, that Brennan is being controlled by Naolin with a rune like a Wyvern.
My face is no. I think
the
no.
mark is something.
I agree that the mark is something. I don't think that's what the mark is, though.
I don't think he's being puppeted. I do think he's got a shady background, and I do think that Naolin is venom.
I don't trust Brennan.
So,
no.
And
Mira doesn't, and I trust Mira.
Yeah, I don't trust Brennan for the fact that he like faked his death and disappeared in and of itself. Like
some things are unforgivable.
There are some lost years there as well where I don't think what he was up to is totally explained. And so, but for me, more so what I think is that Naolin saved him by drawing and became venom. But much like with Violet and Xaden, that didn't break the relationship immediately, right? Like we now know that channeling once doesn't do enough that you're like immediately like full venom. Like you've been poisoned, but you're not necessarily different immediately. So my guess would be that Naolin channeled, saved Brennan, and they still have a relationship. So,
but then what's the mark?
I don't know what the mark is fully. I wonder, part of me wonders if Brennan's lost years also were like Violet trying to figure out if he could save Naolin. And I don't know, right? Because now Brennan comes back. And so that I don't know how, like what that means about his relationship to Venom, what that means to his relationship to Naolin, if he did something to try to save Naolin that like compromised him and that's why he hits the mark or what. But I think it has to do with that.
So we talked about already a bit this one, that Berwyn and Naolin are the same person, and how we don't necessarily think that's true because Berwyn talks about waiting centuries. However, there was one TikToker who has this theory because he thinks that the reason or it was a girl. She thinks that the reason Berwyn can talk to Xaden and Violet in dreams is because he was or is still bonded to Taryn, meaning he's Naolin. So
Interesting.
I
don't hate that.
I could see Naolin helping Berwyn if he's truly Venom to get into the dreams of Xaden and Violet. But it would be hard for me to believe now that Berwyn is Naolin if he's waited centuries because Naolin has not been dead that long.
Right.
And also, I do think at that point, Taryn would say something, or there would be some kind of like, right, like if his former rider was there, I feel like Taryn would feel the responsibility to kill him. Like, it
does also bring back up how much is Taryn hiding, and is he still bonded Naolin if Naolin is alive, or how does that work? And if that is the case, then he possibly does have these outlets to Xaden, Violet, Scanlan, and Darna.
Right. Because I also think back to the fact that Scale has always been super critical of Xaden turning. Taryn actually less so. Not that Taryn is like a fan of Xaden, but I feel like he has not been against Xaden in the way Scale has in fact been.
I think if Scale had watched Taryn go through losing his rider to becoming Venom, that would explain her reaction. I think you're right.
I do too. Yeah.
Here's a fun one. On the island where they all got the fun gifts, Dain was slapped.
It's true.
Dain receives memories through touch.
Oh my God. So he's got the memories of the island then.
Who knows? What did Dain learn when he was slapped?
And that slap could have been intended as a gift as well, right? If the other gifts are more magical than they first appeared, then the slap is probably also...
What did he get from the slap?
Oh my God. Yeah. Can you imagine Broccoli as that like Flurgan from Captain Marvel?
Broccoli's actually an Irid? No. But Dain was slapped. I can't believe we all missed that.
I did. I do feel that. I should have clued into that.
Yeah. So there's this one TikToker / Instagrammer I want to give a big shout out to because my God, this girl has so many videos with theories. I'm like, you are reading and not the same book as me. Like, did you already read it 3 times? What is going on? But I like some of her points. So at Sarah Kane Reads, she says she has a theory for who Theophanie is and says that she may have already slipped and let you know what the cure for Brennan is. So, if you look up the word Theophany spelled a little differently, it means, like in the dictionary, a physical manifestation of a deity. Clearly, Dune has something to do here. She offers Violet power and knowledge and then says, quote, "Do you know the pain of never being allowed to return, of knowing that it would sever the very thing that's kept me untouchable all these years?" That's true. This TikToker thinks the cure to Venom is being dedicated fully to a god, which there are issues with because Theophany, maybe it matters whether you were dedicated before or after becoming Venom. I don't know. But she's fully dedicated to a god and she's still. But her other theory is, this is so deep. People are paying so much attention to those little chapter intros, those little epithets. Mm-hmm. She says that Theophany is Lyra of Moraine, which was one of the original 6 riders. And she says that because of how she has a ruby-hilted sword, and the Duchess of Moraine, who's at the talks for the, I forget what you call it, whatever, symposium. It's not that. But she's at the talks as one of the rulers. She wears rubies. And then Theophany references like not being happy with how things were going and how it cost her everything. So there's that theory.
I definitely think the original 6 are important. and they will
Yes.
continue to be important. And I think because they talk about, was there actually 7? Because there's 7 breeds of dragons. Was there originally 7? And then there's also, I saw on TikTok a lot of connections for how each member of the quest squad would be dedicated to a specific god. So like Xaden would be Malik or someone else, I forget.
Actually, so we'll skip down. There's there's theory that 7 original riders, 7 types of dragons, 7 gods.
Yeah.
And that each, like in the coming war, the theory would be that each god chooses a champion. Violet would actually be the Malik champion because she is the black dragon. And, the people on the islands wear different colors. So it'd have to do with like, blue would be Dune. So Xaden would actually be Dune. But I think it brings in Sloane, Dain, Eric, Riddick, and someone else. There are a couple options for some of them, but that would be an interesting theory in the coming war.
I actually like that idea because I do think the 7s lining up feels important to me.
Oh, the thought was Sloane would represent the Irids because she's like pure power or whatever. I don't know.
Right. And so I like that a lot. And I think that it does make sense to me that the ultimate way they end the war is by dedicating a person to a god and then perhaps channeling from a god, right? Or getting a gift from a god, right?
Yeah.
Like combined with like the type of dragon, like it all like matches to be like channeling power to like defeat the evil.
Well, yeah, I did see one TikToker say like, you turn venom by channeling from the earth, but could you get more power by channeling from the sky without turning venom? And that's kind of what Violet does when she creates lightning, is she's channeling from the sky, channeling from her dragon. But what if she were to channel the whole sky?
Or what if she's channeling from a god?
That too.
There you go.
Interesting. Here's one I think Casey will love. As someone who's chronically not on TikTok.
Yeah.
Dain left his soul in the engagement ring.
Casey's face.
It was like
eyebrows was so high. Here's the thought. The stone she got has been missing from the sword of Tyrandor since before it was in Navarre's possession. So Xaden has had this a long time. Emeralds are representative of spiritual renewal and rebirth. And they talk about how like Dune could cleave a portion of your soul if you forsake her, and they got married in the Temple of Dune. So maybe like somehow that helped him cleave part of his soul and preserve it for Violet.
Okay, I don't hate it. I think the supporting details are persuasive. However,
I also hate it though.
I hate it though.
I hate it.
I just don't think. I don't think
so
that's
cheesy.
It's so cheesy. It's also very Voldemort.
Yeah,
yes,
it's a Horcrux.
People are like,
everyone was saying it's a
Horcruxes.
Horcrux.
It's a Horcrux, yeah, and I just don't love that. I think it's a little too like taking from Harry Potter. Also, like, I just don't. This book doesn't really touch the idea of being able to imbue things with your soul, and I just think it's a little too much to get into that. Like, I don't really like that.
I agree. Here's one I actually like, and then we're getting to ones I think are way crazy. Not that one wasn't just a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
This is once again from the girl with the Theophanie theory. General Daramor is the big bad Brennan. And you're probably like, who the hell's General Daramor? Well, let me tell you. So, Theophanie is talking about reporting to a hymn that's not Berwyn, because Berwyn's her competition. So, in Fourth Wing, there's an epithet that reads, in response to the Great War, dragons claimed the western lands and griffins the central ones, abandoning the barons and the memory of General Daramor, who nearly destroyed the continent with his army. In Iron Flame, when they are discussing the original writer's journals, it is said, but while it goes into detail about the complex interpersonal relationships of the first 6, and even a little of their battle experience during the Great War, it simply labels the enemy as General Daramor and our allies as the Isle Kingdoms. So, Sarah, TikToker, thinks General Daramor was actually part of the first 6. He was the 7th. But because the Irids won't bond riders, he decided to channel from the ground and became the first Venin, which plays into 7 gods, 7 dragons, 7 riders. He would be the 7th.
Interesting.
I could totally see this one.
I like this
one,
theory.
Yeah.
I think that one actually makes a lot of sense, especially if he wasn't actually bonded to the Irid. I feel like he has incentive to like seek power elsewhere.
Right. Everyone else got power but him.
Right. I feel
think
like that
also,
actually would work.
Yeah, because Theophanie says that she's hundreds of years old. So does Berwyn. So it would make sense
So
that
it's someone
the leader would be older
than them. Yeah.
Right. That's the most powerful of them would be centuries old.
Mm-hmm. I like that one.
Yeah.
I don't know how you freaking remember all of those little epithets and stuff, but
yeah, I wouldn't be paying that close attention.
Right. Because I read them all. It's not like I ignore them, but
right.
I'm like, damn, I have not been keeping this close track.
No. Okay, here's where we're getting really, really unhinged. The Venom brother is Liam.
No. Liam is dead.
So some people are very confused where he talks about supposed to be dead at the end when Xaden does. I interpret it as Berwyn. And I think that's really the only way to interpret it. I even went back and reread it. However, some people say supposed to be dead is talking about whoever the brother is. They claim that Varys was answering things that Liam said while Violet was being tortured. But you also said that could be a gift from Alec. Jack was dead and resurrected. Liam was not burned. He was buried. And you know, they say you have to burn a rider and all their things. They also didn't burn all his things. He had his letters and he gave everyone those little carvings. And here's another freaking Horcrux theory is that like parts of his soul are preserved in these things they never burned. And therefore, who knows?
No.
Because then I told you they're getting less and less plausible.
Then in theory, literally every Sorengale would be alive and all of
Lilith was burned.
Sure, but like her father would be alive. Like
he was burned.
I don't know, but their possessions still exist.
And all those things were, yeah, correct.
Yeah. So I'm like, then like every possession or every archive ever would be alive.
I think on the possessions that are, even if he's Venin, part of his soul is preserved and you could bring him back. However, if he was alive and is Venin, he's got to be a villain. That's my opinion. Yeah. It would rip the hearts out of readers.
He's dead.
Or here's the other theory that's kind of wild. King Courtlyn is the new brother. Because I know. I'm telling you.
We've never met him.
Yes, you did. He's the one who stabbed Halden.
Oh, you mean from Deverelli?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's an epigraph in chapter 25 where Xaden's dad talks about, you know, love is not, it's just a way to get children. Mm-hmm. And people are like, ooh, he said children. Does Xaden have an actual living brother? And it's King Courtlyn because he is described, and he's described as looking like Xaden. Xaden says on the island, the shadows here are not mine. The Deverelli people value double meanings, shadows, knowledge, secrets, like Xaden does. And Courtlyn was really upset about that dagger that Halden had that was a Tyrandor family heirloom, a Ryerson heirloom. Why was he so upset about it? And then at the end, he talks about how Violet kept me from killing him. She kept him from killing King Courtlyn on the island when he channeled to kill all the other people. So some people think Xaden has a real brother. It's King Courtlyn, and since King Courtlyn saw him use all this power, he wanted his own.
I think no.
No.
Like that.
I could see maybe there's like the brother, but like not the actual Venin brother. That wouldn't make any sense.
Taking the epigraph to mean that there's more children, I think, is a big stretch. Like, yeah. I don't think that really makes sense to build a theory off of, that there's more of him. Also, if Xaden did have a real life brother, how would he have ended up being King Courtlyn? Like,
yes, I know.
And
Xaden does have 2 actual half brothers.
Right. Yes. And so it's like, they're just doing too much with that, I think.
This last one is the one that really pissed me off on TikTok, Caitlin.
I'm so glad.
I see it.
If Violet is pregnant, I'm going to kill someone.
Yeah, they're like, oh my God, that's why they got married, is she's pregnant. I'm like, this is not Twilight, bitches. No.
The reasoning behind it is they're very specific on what dates they've been intimate because Xaden's counting how long it's been since he channeled. Violet's dizzy and weak and exhausted. Girl, Violet is always dizzy, weak, and exhausted.
It's just always happening.
They specifically talk about it's not ideal to raise kids at Basgiath, and why would they throw that in if it weren't an Easter egg for something? And then at the end, when Scale says, I don't think Taryn will let you near her, especially since she's in a vulnerable state, they think it doesn't just mean she's unconscious. They think it means she's pregnant.
No.
They talk specifically in the book. They say, did you take the contraceptive tonic? Like, they made sure that they were being safe.
Yes.
Because they don't want kids at this time.
No. Also,
especially when
the whole rest of the series, if she's pregnant, I'm out.
Yeah, if she's pregnant, that's too far.
When that person said that and she was so excited about that, I saw the TikTok. I was like, girl, the fact that you're excited about this, if this happens, I'm closing the book and throwing it in the trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I feel like there's no support for that. Like, that's making something out of nothing.
Like,
I think a lot of these are making something out of nothing. However, that Daramor one made something out of nothing, and I do find it plausible. So who knows?
Well, so the thing I find compelling about the Daramor one is they went back to the texts and pulled quotes out of the book that actually seem very relevant. Like, and things that do seem like they were Easter eggs that I
found no way to disprove that one. So
right, like, and it was based in the text in a way where I feel like that could have been a deliberate Easter egg. These ones are based in the text when I'm like, okay, if you read this on acid, you could perhaps interpret it that way, but it's clearly not what she means. Like, in my opinion, we'll see.
I agree with your opinion, Casey.
Yeah.
That's what I've got from you from the Unhinged world. I mean, there was more, but I couldn't bear to watch anymore because it was getting progressively worse. So
yeah, people will just...
Everyone has a different theory on the new brother. Like, no one's in agreement about who
and I had not heard Dain, so there's another one.
Yeah. There we go, guys.
I'm Team Garrick.
I'm
we
Team
should
Garrick.
place like money bets, I think.
Yeah.
Let us know if you want in our pool.
LOL. Okay. So let us know.
We have like 2 years to wait.
Right.
If
you guys have theories, if you're listening to us talking about it and it's sparking something for you, if you've heard something else, slide into our DMs at Busy Girls Pod. We'd love to hear more about what you guys think. And as Caitlin mentioned already, we're citing our sources in the show notes. So if you want to get into the black rabbit hole of theories, you can too.
Guys, thank God TikTok resurrected in time for Onyx Storm.
At the end of the day, that's what's important.
Yeah, I was deeply worried that book talk was going to be gone when all of this stuff comes out.
Book talk, you are cray though. You are
crazy.
Yeah. Some of y'all need to go touch grass. Anyway, please give us a rating. Please rate it 5 stars and let us know if you like us doing these Unhinged episodes. We'll keep doing them. And yeah, I'm Casey.
I'm Catherine.
And I'm Caitlin. Thanks for listening. And when you get a chance, take a break with the Busy Girls Book Club.